This is the Reviewing Network Live, a weekly stream of consciousness recording session where I sit back with you folks out there, talk about some of the big news stories from the past week, and some other things I found that might be of amusement to you out there. I think you might get a kick out of it. Now, these are more like audio podcasts and are much longer than my usual videos and are also, for the most part, unedited and will contain some foul language. So, if you're easily offended by that, I advise you to maybe step back a bit, maybe go somewhere else. But hey, if you're up to the challenge, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Thanks. And for the 148th time, we are live from the Reviewing Network studios. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Reviewing Network Live. We have got a lot of stuff to talk about this week, specifically not just the news stories of the week, but also we are at the halfway point of the year. It is officially weekend 26 of 2026, so the halfway mark of the year here means you get to hear my thoughts on the best and worst movies of 2026 so far, and that'll be coming up at the end of the video, so stay tuned for that. But, yeah, I said we had a lot to get to here, but I just want to start off with something really, really odd that happened to me yesterday, and I don't know if anybody out there has ever had this happen to them, and maybe they do, but I woke up yesterday morning very early. Like, I stay up till about 3:30, 4 o'clock, mostly working on the website and some other things in particular. But, you know, Saturday was supposed to be my day off. This is my weekend off from work, so I should be able to. I usually sleep until about 11:30, noon-ish. But I woke up at 7:30 this yesterday morning, and the reasoning behind this was so weird and just kind of summed up the day overall. It's been a really unusual weekend around here for me. So I get up at around, not even 7:30, like 8:30ish, and I wake up and go to the bathroom and then go back to bed, and then out of the blue, all of a sudden, just the random thought of death just started coming out of nowhere. Like, seriously, it wasn't just me. It was just like my family, my sister, my brother-in-law, my father, my mother, my pets. Like, for some reason, death just came out of nowhere in my mind. And yeah, it was a really, really odd thing. And for some reason, I just couldn't get back to sleep because, you ever have one of those days where you feel like something bad is going to happen, and and you just have that gut feeling in your head, not gut feeling in your stomach, but that feeling in your brain that something really, really awful is going to happen, like someone's going to be in the hospital or somebody's going to die. I mean, yesterday morning really felt like that, because not only did that happen, when I finally got up, when I looked outside my window, there was like a whole murder of crows out there, or that's how Homer Simpson put it in The Simpsons. A murder, Marge, a bunch of crows is a murder. Which I don't even think it is that many, because there was only about 3 of them outside, and these were black crows out there. And usually when you see black crows out around, mostly in the air circling around you, that usually means that, yes, somebody is going to die pretty soon. Okay, I'm looking up the description right now. A murder of crows is the traditional English term for a group of crows. So it's 3 crows. That would probably be considered a murder, but yeah, it was just really, really odd yesterday. And not only that, the weather around here has been really odd too. Like, the weather in particular, like, it was raining for much of the weekend around here. And, this is just before we're supposed to get this massive heat wave coming up later in the week to end the month off. And why did I say it like that? Massive. But massive heat wave. Like, it's supposed to get up to like mid-90s by Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. It's just going to be uncomfortable out there. Going to feel like it's in the hundreds. It's just going to be really, really uncomfortable weather overall. And this room up here does not get a whole lot of good air when it's really hot outside, even with the fan on. I had to actually turn it down today because for some reason the last couple of days it hasn't been like the temperature hasn't been that bad, but it's just been the humidity, the mugginess outside. Even yesterday when it was like in the 60s. It felt muggy. For some reason, it just felt super muggy outside, and I just couldn't figure out what that was all about. But yeah, in this room right now, it's literally 78 degrees while it's 69 degrees outside. So you tell me how that works. But then again, I do have a lot of stuff in here, so I mean, it's not really crowding anything in terms of like, blocking any air conditioning units or anything like that. We're still getting air in here, but for some reason it's 78 degrees in here, and yet it's like 9 degrees lower than that here is right now as I'm recording this. But it's really odd. It's a really odd situation overall, so I don't know why I decided to start it off that way. I just felt like it was something I needed to bring up with you guys. Is this an unusual thing that's been happening to you at some point, or is there something that might be something I need to consider doing in the future? But anyway, with all that out of the way, that's a lovely way to begin this show, talking about dreaming of death and having a murder of crows outside of my house. But maybe this whole thing was about the box office this weekend, because man, the new releases this weekend underperformed, and they weren't terrible, but they just weren't clicking with audiences again. I mean, it's one of those weekends where you look at the numbers and you think to yourself, like, what went wrong here? And really, with one movie, you can pretty much figure out what went wrong with it. But let's take a look at the weekend box office, the last weekend for June of 2026, and let's start off with number 5. Number 5, of course, is Disclosure Day, which fell off a couple of spots, down to $8.1 million. It was number 2 last weekend, bringing its 3-week total to $94.3 million, dropped 54% from last weekend. If you include worldwide numbers, it's about to close in on $200 million, which isn't that bad for this movie overall. There was a little bit of concern that this movie was going to underperform, but I mean, it cost $115 million to make. It's already going to make that money back in the next couple of weeks with the domestic numbers. So it'll at least be seen as somewhat of a profit for Universal and Steven Spielberg in particular. It's a good movie. It's one that you should definitely check out. Just like the number 4 movie, which kind of my fears about this one were kind of true. The moment I saw that they were going to put this out on this particular weekend during the summertime, because these movies don't usually open up in the summertime, and this movie this weekend kind of showed you why. Jackass, Best and Last, which brought in $8.4 million. Not a good start for this movie overall. But the good news is it only cost Paramount $10 million to make, and if you include the worldwide for this, it's just a little over that now, $10.3 million. So they did make their money back overall, but the biggest problem with opening this movie in the summertime is the simple fact that you've just put this in the middle of the big blockbusters out there. The other Jackass movies didn't open up in the summertime. Most of them have opened up in October. The last one opened up in February, where there was nothing out there for people to go see. So, yeah, this was not a good decision by Paramount overall. But then again, it wasn't really being sold that well in particular. It was just mostly... Because the thing with this movie is that it's what we called back in the day a clip movie. Something like a Looney Bugs Bunny movie, the Bugs Bunny Roadrunner movie, those Looney Tunes clip show films, Heathcliff the movies, one of the big examples. The one I was worried about was Trail of the Pink Panther, which is this infamously bad Pink Panther movie where they took a lot of stuff from the Peter Sellers movies and took a lot of the deleted stuff, the stuff that wasn't in the original films, and put them into this movie here to put a narrative together. I was really worried they were going down that pathway, but to its credit, it is a film that does work overall. It's not a bad movie at all. It's everything you expect in the Jackass movie and then some. You do get a lot of newer segments, older segments, and stuff that they couldn't show on MTV in this movie, so there was at least some curiosity to go see this in a theater overall. But I think their big mistake overall was releasing this movie in the middle of summertime. This is something that probably should have opened up in October, or like the last one, opened up in February when there's no new releases coming out, big blockbusters to get in its way, because, yeah, you're sandwiching it, especially in between two of the big family franchises out there, with Toy Story 5 and then the movie we're going to talk about that's coming up next week, just around the corner on Wednesday. So this was probably not the best decision overall by Paramount to do this, but then again, Paramount hasn't made a lot of good decisions as of late, but nothing we can really do about it. So let's go ahead and move on to number 3, which is Obsession. Still hanging in there, although you are starting to see the signs that it is slowly but surely fading out. But not before leaving a massive impact at the box office. $233 million after 7 weeks domestically. Brought in $9.8 million after dropping off 27%. Worldwide, it's up to $370 million. Now, if I'm not mistaken, this actually just beat Sinners as the top grossing... It actually beats Sinners from last year, and Sinners made a lot of money, but yeah, it's hard to believe that a movie like this movie would make just as much as Sinners, and even get closer. I'm looking at the worldwide numbers now. It's neck and neck right now, and just a little bit over $100,000 over what Sinners made. That's really impressive for a movie like this to have those kind of legs. But you're starting to see it kind of fade out of here, and more than likely we're going to get a Blu-ray announcement coming up in the next month or so. It was supposed to come out on digital earlier last month, but they pushed it back because, people were still going to see the movie in theaters. But I don't know. Maybe it'll stick around a little bit more, but you are starting to see it kind of fade out of there. Still hanging around in the tops 3 though, so that's good for that movie. Which then brings us to the movie that's going to be delivering a lot of questionable discussions over at Warner Brothers this weekend. Number 2, and that is Supergirl, which didn't do very well, brought in $38 million, and if you include worldwide numbers, it's not that great either. $68 million worldwide. It is the first major flop of the summer. Actually, I take that back. No, the second major flop of the summer after Masters of the Universe. But unlike Masters of the Universe, which was actually a really good movie, even I have to admit this one was pretty lame. I mean, this one just didn't work for a number of different reasons. None of those reasons involve Millie Alcox, Jason Momoa's Lobo, David Cornswet, who has a couple of roles appearances as Superman in this, or Crypto in this. They were all good. Everything else was just awful. From the bad visuals, the whole idea of a lackluster story here. They're entrusting a lot to this writer who wrote this movie at DC, because she's working on Lanterns. She's got a Wonder Woman movie in the works at the studio, and also is working on the Teen Titans film. So they are pushing a lot on this woman, and if this is the way that's starting off, this thing is going to be dead on arrival almost immediately. And unfortunately, you kind of have to throw James Gunn into the water here too, even though he's not the main writer or director for this movie. He is definitely somebody who is heavily involved in this film, and even made some questionable choices that are just beyond me. Like the last needle drop song at the end of the movie, where it's The Middle by Jimmy Eat World, but it's this punk rock female version, which just does not work at all. And everyone who sees that considers that one of the worst needle drops ever. And sadly, I have to agree with that. All these problems could have been avoidable if the sole fact of this movie was the fact that this movie didn't cost $186 million to make. Like, why would you spend $186 million on a Supergirl movie? Like, if you were going to do this the right way, you make it on the same budget that you had for Shazam. Shazam cost $90 million to make, $90 to $100 million, which is still which is definitely a smaller number than this movie was, but they did more with it in that movie than they did in this film here. I mean, this one just looked terrible, and not a single bit of the visuals made you consider that this was a movie that needed to be $180 million. Like, this movie looked so bleak, so bland, so terrible. The villain was awful. It's literally DC's Thor the Dark World. That's how bad this movie is. And, you've got Peter Safran already coming out doing some damage control, even though Craig Gillespie kind of started the fuel to the flame when he blamed James Gunn for it. But, like I said, Peter Safran did come out with a statement earlier today just to kind of, cut the blow a little bit here. But, I mean, it didn't really help a whole lot. Let me see if I can find what he said, because it just came out a couple of hours ago. Here it is. Here it is right here. He says, while Supergirl didn't meet our box office expectations, it's just one component of a broader long-term strategy at DC Studios that we remain confident in. So confident that they've literally spent over $170 million at the least on it. I mean, that's about as pathetic as a PR statement that you can make for this movie here. And the sad part of all this is that they've opened the door for David Ellison as soon as he buys up Warner Brothers to come in and say, yeah, you guys did so well with the first Superman movie, but Supergirl, yeah, we're gonna go ahead and let you guys go. Like, I would not be shocked at all if they are so gung ho about getting rid of James Gunn and Peter Safran and going back to the DC universe, the Snyderverse again. I mean, I don't want to go down that path again. I mean, that's a horrible idea. And of course, you got people blaming, the World Cup is going on. You got a blistering heat wave. Well, first of all, the World Cup is not the greatest sporting event in the world. There are more people that don't give a shit about the World Cup than people that do give a shit about it. And a blistering heat wave. You know what would be great to do when there's a blistering heat wave? Go to a movie theater. So that's strike 2 right there. That's strike 3 right there in my book. It's just like, you made a bad movie. They're owning up to it at least, but I mean, there's no excuse for this. I mean, there's no excuse for this. And like I said, it's really, I mean, everything is now riding on whatever they do next, because they got Clayface coming up in October, which looks really good, and I think is going to do well enough in that time period to kind of ease the blow a little bit here. But man, that next Superman movie coming out in July, I really think the biggest problem with doing this now is that you just had Superman not come out not even a year ago, less than a year ago, and it really is just something where it's just kind of like, you know, take some time to let people get invested in Superman before you start doing all these movies again. And that's really what's been going on. We were just complaining about this with Star Wars. Most people were complaining this about Star Wars. It's just like, yeah, there's way too much going on, and you're doing this every single year. And it's just kind of like, no, that's not good business practices overall here, and it sucks. It really sucks, because I did go into this with good expectations, because I really love Superman. And, yeah, I mean, there were times when it worked, but you could just look at it and go, like, this is nothing but a diet Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 with the guy who made that movie as the producer on it. So, yeah, this is on him, too, and I just really feel like there's going to be this huge backlash that's going to come from the studios and from the new people that are coming in once this deal gets through. I mean, it's just nothing good is going to come from this whatsoever. So, yeah, it's a major letdown for that movie to not only do poorly at the box office, but to be just as boring and as bland as it was. I mean, this is a really bad. It's a really what a disaster this is right now. So, but it's anything but a disaster over at Disney, because the number one movie once again is Toy Story 5, which brought in $70 million this weekend, bringing its 2-week total to $297.2 million. It's on its way to over $600 million worldwide, $585 million. Won't be surprised if it crosses the $1 billion mark before it's all said and done. And yeah, it's looking like it's on its way to be doing some good numbers overall. Let me see what the numbers were compared to Toy Story 4's second weekend. Let's see, Toy Story 4 did a little worse than Toy Story 4 did. Toy Story 4 brought in made over it's a little bit it's the percentage drop on Toy Story 4 second weekend was 50.6. This is 56.2. However, the good news is that Toy Story 5 is moving well ahead of Toy Story 4, with Toy Story 4 after 2 weeks had made over $238 million, and then Toy Story 5 brought in $297.2 million. So they are more than well ahead here. So it won't be long until it's the number one movie at the box office for the year so far, which, I mean, that could be the case for going forward here, but keep a close eye on Spider-Man Brand New Day. I mean, the Odyssey is coming up, and the Odyssey should do very well, but the early reports I've been hearing about Spider-Man Brand New Day online is the fact that this movie could be on its way to making $250 million for its opening weekend, which would be one of the biggest openings since Avengers Endgame. I mean, if I remember correctly, if it's not going to be just a little bit lower than Spider-Man Brand New Day, because I guess when Spider-Man Brand New Day opened at $250 million, but I think it could have opened at 260, so it's not too far off. But nevertheless, I mean, that just shows you the power of how much people love Spider-Man, how excited they're to see the new movie here. But for right now, the biggest thing that's heading our way next weekend is Minions and Monsters, Illumination's second film of the year, and one that should do very well overall. The early word of mouth on it is really good. These movies usually do very well on the 4th of July weekend, and even after Despicable Me 4, the new stuff I've been seeing from Minions and Monsters looks very fun and promising. So I would not be shocked at all if it does incredible business this weekend at the box office, and I'm definitely looking forward to checking it out next weekend. That's for sure. So there you go. That is the weekend box office. So let's go ahead and get into our news stories, and then of course the best and worst movies of 2026. So, one of the big stories that took place earlier in the week was the fact that ABC is launching an on-air campaign warning viewers of the FCC's actions and urging public comment on its crackdown of The View and also Jimmy Kimmel Live, and basically the whole thing about the equal time rule here. But I got the story here from Deadline Hollywood. It says ABC is taking the airwaves to warn viewers of the FCC's crackdown on The View and the agency's unusual demand that the network stations seek early renewals of their broadcast licenses. The spots, which started airing on Monday, are the latest pushback from the Walt Disney Company and the network, which says the actions of the FCC under its Trump-appointed chairman Brendan Carr are chilling free speech. The spots also urge viewers to file complaints with the FCC as deadlines near for public input as part of the agency's proceedings. The spot for The View starts with images of the show's founder, Barbara Walters, talking about the idea with a program featuring different women, different points of view. A narrator then says, "The View has welcomed your favorite guests to cover the issues you cared about now for 30 years now. The FCC wants to control who isn't allowed to appear on your show. Viewers, use your voice." The narrator then directs viewers to a QR code where they can comment on the FCC proceedings with a deadline of July 6. Carr launched an investigation into the show after it featured James Tallarico, a Democratic candidate for U.S. Senator in Texas. The probe was of ABC's own station in Houston, which held the show as exempt from equal time requirements because it's a bona fide news program. The equal time regulation requires broadcasters who feature political candidates to offer comparable time to rivals if requested. ABC, however, said the FCC's actions were unprecedented, diverging from years in which talk shows in general have been treated as bona fide news programs and therefore not on the hook to provide equal time. In an FCC filing, ABC pointed to a 2002 FCC ruling that confirmed that The View was exempt. The show is produced under the network's news division. As of Monday morning, nearly 2,500 comments have been filed into the FCC's View proceedings, and by Monday mid-afternoon after the campaign had been launched, more than 6,100 comments have been filed. The equal time rule is about political candidates as guests, yet it is often mistaken as the fairness doctrine, which requires broadcasters to present a variety of viewpoints on issues of major public interest. That doctrine was abandoned by the agency nearly 4 decades ago during the Reagan administration. An FCC spokesperson said in a statement, Disney wants the FCC to classify The View as a bona fide news program, as it has chosen to run a campaign of misinformation to make its case, misleading viewers about the law. That is a choice. Actually, it's not a choice. It was they literally just said there that the doctrine that required this to happen was gone 4 decades ago, and it was considered already a bona fide news program. Like, let's be honest here. This is another excuse for Trump and his cronies to get exactly what they want because heaven forbid if people actually know the truth about what's going on in the world and want to shut down the voices of people that really don't like what our government is doing right now. And it doesn't help that, there are cronies out there for the president that are doing that are in these positions and are working on this. And that Brandon Carr's not going to do this professionally. No, he's going to do it where it's just like, well, I looked at the comments and I think you're wrong. So no, you are not considered that. It's like, it's literally like this whole thing. And it says that, it does say on here that, actually I misread that here, but this is just, it's another excuse for our government to control what we're doing, what we're watching, and what we need to accept as real news. Which, what they're trying to push is not real news. And I hope these people, I hope ABC's the people who watch The View or actually I hope they're doing everything they can to shove it into the faces of the people that are trying to shut them down, because this is getting ridiculous now. It's been now going on for over a year now, and really it's not it's surprising, if anything, that more people haven't been fired from this whole thing yet. But then again, we've got the Paramount Warner Brothers merger coming up here, and Bill Maher apparently got on J.D. Vance's nerves, so he may be gone with John Oliver pretty soon if that deal goes through, but because that's what's going to happen. So there you go. Just wanted to cover that overall. So let's go ahead and get to some other things that may or may not happen with this merger, because Warner Brothers Animation is pretending like there's nothing going on whatsoever. In fact, we're going to announce a shit ton of projects that we know are going to get made. Wink, wink. So Warner Brothers Animation had their big show over at the Annecy Animation Festival, announcing a lot of big projects overall, and they're just pretending like there's no dangerous shit going on with a person that might take over their studio in the not too distant future. But Warner Brothers Animation wants the industry to know it's back for reals this time. This is from the Hollywood Reporter. After several years in which Warner Brothers became better known among animators for what it wouldn't release than what it made, WBPA President and Chief Creative Officer Bill Damashek took the stage at Annecy to say that the studio is committed to taking big swings in animation. Today marks the beginning of a new chapter for animation at Warner Brothers, Damashek said, calling WBPA an artist-first studio that wants to make original theatrical films that feel completely unique, connected not by a single style, but a heart, hope, and humor. Because it really felt like that was what you were doing 10 years ago with the Lego Movie and Storks and Smallfoot and all those other movies you made, but anyway. Damashek ran through a slate of 7 features planned for this year in 2028, starting with the oft-delayed The Cat in the Hat, and including upcoming theatrical releases such as Bad Fairies and The Lunar Chronicles, both developed with the UK's Locksmith Animation. He also unveiled a new logo that evokes the studio's 80-year-old tradition and premiered the new Looney Tunes short Daffy season, which will premiere in front of The Cat in the Hat this November. All in front of an audience of animators, producers, and festival goers who have spent recent years watching the Warner Brothers animation pipeline become a case study in corporate caution rather than a creative destination. Looney Tunes fans remember how in 2023, Warner Brothers shelved the finished Coyote vs. Acme, preferring a tax write-off to release the hotly anticipated animated live-action feature starring Will Forte. WB eventually reversed course, allowing the filmmakers to be shopped the project to other distributors, but the move gave some creative pause. I cannot talk right now, I'm sorry. Let me start that paragraph over again. Looney Tunes fans remember how in 2023, Warner Brothers shelved the finished Coyote vs. Acme, preferring a tax write-off to releasing the hotly anticipated animated live-action feature starring Will Forte. Warner Brothers eventually reversed course, allowing the filmmakers to shop the project to other distributors, but the move gave some creative pause. It followed similar moves by David Zaslav on WB to bin animated feature Scoob Holiday Hunt, a planned HBO Max release, and The Day the Earth Blew Up, the first fully animated Looney Tunes release. Warner Brothers' loss ended up being Ketchup Entertainment's gain. The indie distributor Ketchup acquired The Day the Earth Blew Up, releasing it earlier in 2025, where it grossed a respectable $9 million domestically and $15 million worldwide. And in March, Ketchup picked up Coyote vs. Acme in a $50 million deal. That film opens on August 28th. Damashek would clearly like to put that era behind him. At Annecy, he invoked the history of WB animation, arguing that giving animators creative freedom and not fixing on an in-house style was the key to the Looney Tunes golden age, an approach he said WBPA was looking to emulate. Let me see some of the other projects they got working on here. There they go. Damashek rattled off the titles in his upcoming slate, including Margie Claus, a holiday film from Melissa McCarthy, Ben Falcone, and Damon Jones, the musical adaptation Oh the Places You'll Go, adapted from the Dr. Seuss book featuring Ariana Grande and Josh Gad, a Hello Kitty movie being produced in partnership with Sanrio and New Line Cinema, and Dynamite Duo, an adventure fantasy set in the Batman universe told from a teenager's perspective that follows two would-be Robins, Dick Grayson and Jason Todd. Damaski said the latter, produced in partnership with DC Studios in 6th Idaho, will be featuring the groundbreaking puppetry of New Orleans-based Swaybox Studios. The studio also confirmed new projects in development, including reimaginings of Tom and Jerry, Thundercats, and Meerkats, and Prehistoria, an original musical from Hazbin Hotel creator Vivian Medrano. It's not showing the one I wanted to talk about here, which was that they also revealed that they were going to do a Powerpuff Girls movie, but I want you to listen to how these articles put it out there. Because it should be, Powerpuff Girls movie or in early development at Warner Brothers Animation. But no, it's not like that. You want to know what it's like? As soon as I can find the article here. Here it is. Here it is from Variety. It says that a new Powerpuff Girls movie is in development at Warner Brothers Pictures Animation. The company shared Monday at Annecy's International Film Festival, currently taking place in France. Sources at the studios confirm a Powerpuff Girls film is in the works, but stress there's no deal in place. Given a lack of green light at the moment, plot details for the upcoming adventure haven't been announced. Based off the Cartoon Network series Powerpuff Girls, revolving around three young girls with superpowers, they were created by Professor Utonium by using a mixture of sugar, spice, and everything nice. As the lore goes, he accidentally spilled into a mysterious ingredient called Chemical X into the mixture, and thus the Powerpuff Girls were born. The trio, who has dedicated their lives to fighting crime and the forces of evil, used their powers to take down baddies in the city of Townsville. Powerpuff Girls premiered in 1998, and, okay, you kind of know the story already, but it doesn't say in this article about... There were articles putting it out there saying that a Powerpuff Girls movie is in development, but Warner Brothers needs to get the rights to the franchise first. Warner Brothers needs to get the rights to make the Powerpuff Girls. Isn't Warner Brothers and Cartoon Network owned by the same company, or has David Ellison already started making some deals before he even officially buys the company and has sold off Cartoon Network to somebody else? Because, yeah, there's no reason why there should be talks to get the rights to something you already own the rights to. This makes no sense whatsoever. I don't know. I don't know what's going on there. I don't know if Paramount started already making deals for Cartoon Network to go somewhere else. So I think that's part of the thing that why they got the rights from the European Union to accept the merger, that they had to sell off some of their children's shows here. So of course they're not going to get rid of Nickelodeon. That's their bread and butter. They got to get rid of Cartoon Network and give it to somebody else. So maybe that's what's going on here, but it just seems really odd. Why do you need to get the rights to produce this movie when it's owned by your company? Nothing about this makes any sense at all. I don't know. Maybe I'm not smart enough to figure out what Warner Brothers owns right now. But nobody really knows what's happening with Warner Brothers. Nobody's really known what to do with Warner Brothers for the past 10 years. Let's just be honest here. But That was not the only big animation news announced at the Annecy Festival, because Paramount Animation has an announcement of their own that they made. And that is that Paramount Animation is developing a movie version of the indie comic Freddy the 13th, done by Yehudi Mercado, which, if some of you out there are from the Spill days and also the Double Toasted days, you'll recognize the name of Yehudi Mercado, because Corey Coleman talks about him all the time, especially on the Spill days. But of course, he's now gone on to become more, obviously he's become more well-known within the animation industry and has made it on his own. So Paramount Animation has announced an untitled Dan Trachtenberg animated comedy horror based off the indie comic Freddy the 13th by Yehudi Mercado. The project announcement comes 4 months after the 10 Cloverfield Lane and Predator Badlands director signed a 3-year producing and directing first-look deal with the animation division's parent company, Paramount Pictures. Trachtenberg will also produce the animated project with longtime collaborator Ben Rosenblatt. Released in late 2025, Freddy the 13th follows the trials and tribulations of the hapless Freddy Van Winkle, the 13th son of a 13th-born son who fails at everything in contrast to his brilliant siblings. One night, when looking after his nephew and niece Logan and Lola, he accidentally kills the legendary slasher 99 and automatically inherits the mantle of the monster. With rival killers emerging out of the shadows, Freddy has 13 nights to break the curse. So yeah, this isn't Five Nights at Freddy's, but it sounds pretty damn close. So Mercado was a former Disney arts director turned graphic novelist and is co-directing the film. His other indie comics include Buffalo Speedway, Pantalones Texas, Rocket Salvage, Sci-Fu, Kick It Off, and middle grade graphic novel Chunky. The logline for the new movie adaptation reads, "A family vacation turns into a nightmare when Fun Uncle Freddy accidentally kills the boogeyman and takes on his powers." Paramount Animation are pitching the feature as PG-rated horror, delivering scares and laughs to the whole family, which, yeah, would be pretty awesome if we could trust Paramount Animation. But this just seems like one of those projects that says that, oh yeah, we're gonna do it, and then probably will not get made at all. Kind of like what we touched on last weekend with the animated Survivor movie with all animals. Like, I seriously don't think that's gonna happen overall. But you never know; it could indeed happen in the future. So, but let's go ahead and get to some other animation news this weekend, because everyone pretty much made animation news, all except for Disney. Disney was relatively quiet this weekend, but, well, that's not true. They did announce the new Lilo and Stitch and Finding Nemo shorts coming to theaters with Hext and also Gato, so that's something to look forward to, but no big feature film news to announce yet. They're probably saving all that good stuff for D23 in a couple months, but Universal got to work with some announcements, specifically with DreamWorks Animation and Illumination, so let's start with DreamWorks. And that is that the rumored Donkey movie that Eddie Murphy had been talking about back a couple years ago when he was promoting Axel Foley, has officially been given a go-ahead and, not only that, a release date. Universal Pictures has made official what Shrek star Eddie Murphy began talking about on the press tour for Beverly Hills Cop Axel Foley. There is a Donkey movie happening from DreamWorks Animation, and it's coming to theaters on Friday, June 30th, 2028. So about 1 year after Shrek 5 opens up, which will open up next summer. The movie is an origin story on how a donkey became Donkey. I mean, it literally says became donkey with a capitalized donkey. Pick is directed by Charlie Bean of the Lego Ninjago movie, which I just talked about on Time About the Movies. I like that movie enough, but not as good as the other Lego films. And the live-action Lady and the Tramp, which I actually didn't mind that one. That was one of the first Disney Plus original projects out there. It wasn't as bad as people make it out to be. It's definitely one of the better live-action Disney adaptations. Produced by Rebecca Huntley of Kung Fu Panda 4 and The Bad Guys, and co-directed by Matt Flynn, whose story artist credits include The Wild Robot, Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, and The Bad Guys. So at least this movie's going to look really cool with the animation of those films in mind. Last summer, Murphy told Screen Rant, Donkey's going to have his own movie, own little story with his dragon wife and kids that are half dragon and half donkeys. They've written this funny story. Universal also had the date on hold until under an untitled Illumination event film on the Rentrex calendar. The news comes prior to Shrek 5's theatrical release, which is set for next summer, June 30th, 2027. So it'll be literally opening up a year after Shrek 5 comes out. A Donkey spin-off movie about the sassy mule is an organic blockbuster. The two Puss in Boots movies combined grossed $1 billion, which raised the total Shrek universe across 6 movies to $4 billion. Shrek won the first animated feature Oscar back in 2001 and spawned a global live touring show, an award-winning Broadway musical with 8 Tony noms and 12 Drama Desk noms, in addition to becoming a top tourist destination in London and popular events and attractions across Universal Studios parks worldwide. Then there's the whole consumer products of it all. Which, yeah, if you watch some videos of Universal Kids in Texas, there's a whole section dedicated to not just Shrek, but Puss in Boots. So it's clear that Universal knows the power of the Shrek franchise overall, and is going to use it to sell it wherever it goes. But, and I watched some of the video from people that I do watch a lot of, the Tim Tracker. They went out to the Universal Kids Park, and it's literally just a kids theme park. And I think their biggest mistake with selling it to everybody involved here, when it is mostly a kids park when you look at the stuff that they show on there. And yeah, it's like the Peppa Pig park that's in Orlando, Florida. It's not really made for the general audiences that are going to go out to Universal. This is supposed to be a much smaller thing for kids to go and see. And I think for little kids, from what I saw from it, doesn't look that bad overall. It doesn't look. I mean, the only thing that I can think of that really looks bad about it is that it doesn't look finished yet. It looks like they were kind of rushed into it to get it out there in the time for the summer. It's like when Mr. Krabs put together a park at the last minute in a SpongeBob to get the kids invested in it. And also, I feel like maybe that the other thing that might not be good enough for this place is the fact that doesn't seem to be a whole lot of covering all over it when it comes to the heat waves down there. Because, yeah, it's in Texas, San Antonio, Texas. Of course, there's going to be a lot of hot weather there. There's coverings, but it doesn't seem like... It really feels like there should be more coverings to it overall. I don't know. Maybe that's just my thinking around it. But what is notable about the Donkey movie, getting back to that, is that Warner Brothers has the Dynamic Duo movie already set for that date, as well as Paramount, who have their Call of Duty movie out there for that date. So it's going to be interesting to see which one of those studios are going to cave on that date. Will it be Warner Brothers? Will it be Paramount? Will it be Universal? I really think that Universal probably does stand the best chance overall of keeping that date, because they pretty much made that date their date to release big blockbusters here. Universal is for 4th of July, what Disney is to Thanksgiving. I mean, they just dominate whenever they put a new movie out there. And more than not, people go out to go see those films. So I'm getting a good feeling that Universal will probably have that spot going forward. But as far as the movie itself goes, I have my concerns about a Donkey movie overall. I mean, Donkey's a great side character, but he's the type of character that if he had his own film, he could get pretty annoying right away. I mean, the first thing I think about is Cars 2, where Larry the Cable Guy's Mater was the biggest part of that, was the main star of that movie overall. But it also didn't help that they completely just changed the whole idea of the Cars franchise with a film by making it into a spy movie. And I really do feel like that could backfire on them big time when it's all said and done. But who knows? Maybe it'll actually work out in the end. I mean, Puss in Boots but at least Puss in Boots had a pretty cool idea of what the ways they could bring that character into his own world and make it work where it doesn't need to involve Shrek in it. But I have my concerns, but I think there might be an opportunity for this to work overall, maybe in the end. But so with all that said, let's go ahead and move on to the last bit of news from the Annecy Film Festival. This time regarding Universal's other big animation house, Illumination. So with Minions and Monsters on the way, Illumination's next movie is not too far off after that, about 9 months away, because it was also revealed at the festival that Universal has revealed that Illumination's new animated feature, Not Alone, which will star Timothée Chalamet and Selena Gomez, will open on April 16th, 2027. So I wouldn't be surprised if we get a teaser, if we get some kind of trailer before Minions and Monsters this weekend. Probably one that won't get online for a long period of time, but you have to go see the movie to see it in theaters to see it. But four-time Oscar nominee Chalamet will star as Joe, an introverted rocket mechanic who lives a quiet life alone, co-starring with Chalamet and Emmy and Grammy nominee Gomez as Fran, a brilliant astrobotanist who is developing the world's first ever planet-fueled rocket. The synopsis reads, when Joe and Fran are brought together to prepare for the inaugural launch of this revolutionary rocket, there are immediate sparks, but neither is particularly adept at romance. Life becomes more complicated when three aliens, tiny, unrulable, and adorable, take refuge in Joe's home. Dunk, Welly, and Shroom are the interplanetary run from a zealous yet inept officer of the law named Xandro. The aliens determine that Fran's rocket will provide them the means of getting back home safely. Additional voice cast includes Rob Brydon, Diane Morgan, Jamie Demetrio, Brett Goldstein, Allison Janney, and Lamont Morris. Pick is directed by Eric Gillian, the co-director of Despicable Me 3 and the designer of Despicable Me and Minions. So, yeah, it's another Universal Alien movie in a summer where being announced in a summer that includes Disclosure Day. And, of course, one of the biggest hits of all time is a Universal Alien movie, E.T. the Extraterrestrial, which this sounds like that mixed in with a little bit of Earth Girls Are Easy. Remember that movie with Jeff Goldblum, Damon Wayans, and Jim Carrey with Gina Davis as well? from back in the 80s. I mean, that's what this kind of feels like overall from that premise alone. But I mean, it could be good. I mean, Illumination. I criticize Illumination a lot because a lot of their movies are very underwhelming, and once in a while they'll have a good movie here and there. I mean, 2023 is one of the best examples of that. They had a really good year in that year with Super Mario Brothers movie and Migration. But the last couple of years, they've been slumming it a little bit here. Despicable Me 4 was not that great, and neither was the Super Mario Galaxy movie. But I'm looking forward to seeing what Minions and Monsters does here, so it'll be interesting to see what this movie in particular does here. I really can't wait to see what they do with this here going forward here. How do they make this their own? That's a big question I have with that film. So let's go ahead now and move into some other news stories in the world of movies in particular. Specifically, another installment of another pointless sequel nobody was asking for, but screw you, we're going to do it anyway. Ha! And the latest entry in this category is the Are We There Yet franchise. Ice Cube can't get a Last Friday movie made, but he'll more than be willing to come on board for Are They Gone Yet, which is the name of this movie. After 20 years, Nick and Suzanne are back for another ride in the third film in the Are We There Yet franchise. Ice Cube and Nia Long are reuniting for Are They Gone Yet, which is currently in early development after being acquired by Skydance Sports. Of course, it's Skydance. 2 decades after the pair started alongside each other in Are We There Yet and Are We Done Yet? In the latest installment of the comedy franchise written by Chris Hazard and Mike Fontana, Nick faces his biggest challenge yet, grandkids. We built something special with this franchise. Did you really? Did you really build something special with this franchise, Ice? I mean, let's be honest here. Are We There Yet was only a success in January of 2005 because you opened it in January. There was no other family films out there to compete with you. And yeah, that movie made a ton of money because, yeah, there was nothing else out there for the kids. More so why the second one didn't do so well, Are We Done Yet, which was not a big success. And if anything good came from this franchise, it was of all things the TBS series with Terry Crews and Essence Atkins. I mean, I watched a couple of episodes of that, and that actually was a whole lot better than anything from this. But, I mean, really? Are we really going to waste our time with this? Like, this feels like a movie that should not be going to theaters. This should be like a direct-to-video sequel that Universal picked up with, because they did this with a couple of Revolutionary Studios movies in the past. They did it for Daddy Daycare with Granddaddy Daycare. They did the Benchwarmers 2 without Rob Schneider and all them. Like, and it's just for the namesake overall. Like, I don't think there is really that much of a demand for this movie whatsoever. But, I mean, what can I say, man? I mean, this just seems like a really, really bad idea. And like I said, you can't use your power to get a Final Friday movie made, but you'll spend your time on this garbage? Really? Really, Ice Cube? Anyway, I need a good story to follow this afterwards here. There's a new Lego movie with Keanu Reeves. You had my interest, and now you have my curiosity. You also had my curiosity, but now you have my attention, is the correct quote from Django Unchained from Leonardo DiCaprio. But, yeah, Keanu Reeves is eyeing a reunion with Toy Story 4 director Josh Cooley on a new live-action Lego hybrid movie at Universal. And, yeah, I've been wondering whether or not Universal was going to dive back into the world of Legos after Piece by Piece, which I really enjoyed that movie, but was not the big box office success they were hoping for. Excuse me. After successfully launching the Duke Kaboom character in the Toy Story franchise, Keanu Reeves and Josh Cooley are looking to reteam on another popular toy franchise. Sources tell Deadline that Keanu Reeves is in negotiations to star in the live-action hybrid Lego pick with Cooley directing. Universal has no details, but Jill Wilford and Ryan Christians will produce through the Lego Group. Plot details are under wraps, though sources say it will be a mix of live-action and animation. Since landing the rights in 2020, the studio has been developing a number of scripts to get this property greenlit, but nothing is struck. Insiders close to the project say after a number of runs with writers and directors, the studios are looking to swing with an A-list star in Reeves, specifically developing the project around the Reeves character. After weeks of back and forth, Reeves started to engage with the studio. As things progressed, sources say that the studio brought in Reeves' Toy Story 4 director to pitch his vision, which eventually led to Reeves' thumbs up to star in the film. Reeves and Cooley successfully launched the Duke Kaboom character in the Toy Story 4. In Toy Story 4, I thought they added the "the" in there, which Cooley directed. Reeves recently reprised in Toy Story 5 this past weekend. Toy Story 4 made more than $1 billion at the global box office and won the Best Animated Feature Oscar. The original Lego films grossed a combined $1.1 billion globally. Those films remained in the Warner Brothers library. The offshoot, the Lego Ninjago movie, will unearth the Lego Batman movie. The Reeves commitment is a big win for the studios. There was the clock to get a film up and running before the rights lapse. Insiders say if the studios don't have a film close to pre-production in the next 6 months, there's a strong chance that the Lego rights could lapse and head back to market. So yeah, I've liked a lot of the Lego movies overall. So yeah, naturally, I'm very excited to see what they do with this type of a film. And I do like this director a lot. He made the best Transformers movie ever with Transformers 1 a couple of years ago, which nobody went to go see at the box office. And that's a shame, because now the Transformers franchise is probably going to be brought back into the helm of Michael Bay again, which I don't want that to happen overall, But Cooley has been keeping himself very busy. He has a number of different projects, including the live-action adaptation of Malamander for Sony Pictures, and he also has Little Monsters, a live-action CG hybrid for Universal inspired by the Universal monsters. And also he was brought in to write and direct the Tower of Terror movie for Disney with Scarlett Johansson attached to star and produce. All of them are still in production. It's still development. So yeah, I'm looking forward to this overall. And you bring in a guy like Keanu Reeves to play the lead in this. I mean, this could be a really good movie overall. This could be a lot of fun, and I, for one, can't wait to see how it turns out. So let's head back into spinning the wheel of sequels that nobody was asking for, but screw you, we're gonna do it anyway. Hey, Lionsgate, what do you got cooked up next year? How about a brand new Blair Witch movie? Because it's clear that after the first movie, there was such a demand for a sequel when, no, there really wasn't. A new take on the Blair Witch Project will haunt theaters next fall. Lionsgate, which is backing the reboot of the supernatural thriller, has slated the movie for September 24th, 2027. Lionsgate motion picture chair Adam Fogelson has previously referred to the film as a new version that will reintroduce this horror classic for a new generation, because the original, the Adam Wingard one from about 10 years ago was not that at all. I guess we're completely pretending that doesn't exist anymore. Are we going to pretend that Blair Witch 2 doesn't exist either? Probably not. Dylan Clark, who got his start on YouTube, is directing the upcoming Blair Witch Project from a script by Chris Thomas Devlin. The Blair Witch Project, released in 1999, is one of the most commercially successful indie films of all time, earning nearly $250 million at the global box office against a micro budget. The movie uses found footage to capture the alleged true story of 3 student filmmakers who disappear while making a film about the legend of the Blair Witch. Executive producers on the remake include the 1999 film's creators, Eduardo Sanchez and Daniel Myrick, along with Greg Hale, as well as original film cast members Joshua Leonard and Michael C. Williams. They will be joined by Michael Clear, Judson Scott, and Steven Snyder. Blumhouse Atomic Monster founder James Sid Blum and James Wan will serve as producers, with Roy Lee, Adam Hendricks, and Greg Gilreath. Blair Witch Project spawned a 2000 sequel, Book of Shadows, Blair Witch 2, which wasn't quite the success as the original. Yeah, no shit it wasn't, because it wasn't a Blair Witch movie. Yeah, don't let that Blair Witch 2 fool you. It was a completely different movie, which they smacked Blair Witch on for the life, is just to try to save face on that film. As well as a 2016 remake directed by Adam Wingard, as I mentioned before. Lionsgate currently operates a Blair Witch-themed escape room in Las Vegas that's called Escape Blair Witch. And, really, this is a movie that nobody was asking for. I mean, even with the last Blair Witch movie, that didn't get the best reviews overall and was largely forgotten almost immediately after it came out. The Blair Witch Project was a zeitgeist moment back in 1999 because it was an unprecedented thing. Nobody had ever seen a movie like that before. But I mean, it spawned all these knockoffs, Paranormal Activity, the Saw franchise has basically kind of taken the mantle as what, not really like the Blair Witch Project, but the found footage genre started with the original Blair Witch Project. So them trying to continuously remake these movies and keep making new films to try to keep the franchise afloat, you really are not going to get a whole lot more from this than you didn't get from that first movie. And it really started with that first sequel. Like I said before, there was nothing about that movie that deserved to be associated with the Blair Witch. Nothing about that film at all. But yet they did it, and it killed that franchise almost immediately before Adam Wingard tried his hand at it, and it didn't work out so well. So I don't know, man. I just don't see it working at all. So let's go ahead and move on to our next story. And that is that a project that I'm kind of surprised hasn't already gotten made at this point is moving forward, as it's now appearing that the Magic School Bus is getting the live action movie treatment here. Elizabeth Banks is ready to take chances, make mistakes, and get messy on the Magic School Bus. It sounds like something that should not have to do with students overall, with a teacher played by Elizabeth Banks, but that's a whole other thing altogether. Banks is also attached to star as adventurous teacher Miss Frizzle in a live-action Magic School Bus movie, which Legendary has getting the rights to making the feature. Rob Letterman will write a treatment and direct after working with Legendary on Detective Pikachu. Scholastic, the publisher behind the book series, will produce alongside Banks' Brownstone Productions, Mark Platt Productions, and Legendary. Banks first flirted with a version of the movie back in 2020 when it was set up at Universal. Writer Joanne Cole and illustrator Bruce Deegan created the books, publishing the first in 1986. The series follows Miss Frizzle as he takes her class on an out-of-this-world field trip in her yellow school bus that transports into whatever they need that day, be it a spaceship or a submarine. Lily Tomlin voiced Miss Frizzle in an animated show that ran from 52 episodes from 1994 to 1997 on PBS, while Kate McKinnon stepped into the starring role in the 2017 reboot The Magic School Bus Rides Again as the younger sister of Miss Frizzle. Tomlin also reprised her role in the series, which ran for 3 seasons and 30 episodes. And really, when this got announced, my first thought was maybe, why not Kate McKinnon playing Frizzle? I mean, that was the first person I thought of when this got announced. It's just like, why her? I mean, not to say that Elizabeth Banks is bad and all that, but I felt like Kate McKinnon probably was more eyed for that role than Banks is. I mean, like I said, Banks is one of those great comedic actresses that can step out of her boundaries and do something unique and different, like Cocaine Bear, for example. But it's a good choice overall. I mean, I'm not complaining about it whatsoever. But I do think that this is something that it's about time the Magic School Bus gets a film treatment overall. And not only that, but I've always been waiting for another book series, The Magic Treehouse, to get the film treatment. I mean, it's amazing that nobody's even thought about doing a movie series about those books in particular. I feel like those would be primed to start as the new family film franchise. But who knows? Maybe the Magic School Bus will be the one thing that gets it together here. And speaking of Detective Pikachu, any news on that sequel? You've been talking about doing it for so many years now, and yet nothing. So, all right, so let's go ahead and move on to our next story. Okay, I moved downstairs here because it was getting a little too hot upstairs here, but I'm almost done here, so I want to get through this pretty quickly. But so yeah, not only have I been dreaming about death yesterday, another thing I've been thinking a lot about was David Letterman, mostly because I've been watching some old David Letterman clips on YouTube. But he is in the news this week as his Late Night with David Letterman is getting a big boost in the world of streaming. This comes from Variety, and it says, David Letterman's long tenure in late night is about to get a global boost as his Worldwide Pants teams up with NBC Universal and Merzigo to expand distribution on more than 6,000 episodes on YouTube, Facebook, and other platforms around. If you've watched a lot of David Letterman stuff on there, you see guys like Don Giller and old David Letterman have it on there, so I guess now it's going to be through NBC Universal and through Letterman's YouTube channel. The deal calls for Tech Merzigo to optimize Letterman's archive of late-night shows. Started in 1982 with NBC's Late Night with David Letterman, which ran until 1993, and CBS's The Late Show with David Letterman, which aired from 1993 to 2015. David Letterman's unparalleled run in late night across 4 decades from his shows on NBC and CBS contains 6,000 hours of some of the most memorable television content in pop culture history. As we continue to expand our distribution of these iconic moments on YouTube and Facebook, partnering with Merzigo will enable us to better reach fans and new viewers across every platform and device, delivering our thousands of videos in the best quality they have ever been seen, says Walter Kim, Worldwide Pants exclusive executive producer for digital. NBC Universal Global TV Distribution already teamed with Worldwide Pants to launch a Letterman-themed FAST channel via Samsung TV Plus last year. The expanded deal and its focus on free ad-supported streaming platforms is another sign that owners of large content libraries are seeing more potential in FAST channel distribution. NBC owns the Late Night with David Letterman archive, while Worldwide Pants owns the CBS Late Show archive, a deal that reflected Letterman's enormous clout when he made the move from NBC to CBS. So, yeah, it's another way for people to see David Letterman's classic bits on TV, and really, they should be seen on TV. They really should be seen on there because, as I said last week about, what killed late night, you missed a lot of the zaniness that was late night television back in the day with David Letterman and Conan O'Brien. And it gives everyone an opportunity to see the old school David Letterman and see what that's all about. And I think that's something that could be really, really beneficial to showing people that, hey, this stuff is still very funny even after all these years. I mean, even his stuff in his later years is still really, really funny. Like I said, I've been watching a lot of that as of late, and it's still really, really funny stuff overall. So this is something I'm definitely looking forward to seeing if it ends up getting onto my Roku TVs here. But that's to be determined. So let's go ahead and move on to the next story. So the quest to find the next James Bond is underway, and a new set of auditions is set to take place in August, according to Deadline Hollywood. Fans of the James Bond franchise are getting closer to finding out who will next play the iconic spy for future installments. Sources tell Deadline that producers and director Denis Villeneuve have begun informing talents who have made the next round of auditions, which will occur later this summer. Villeneuve has been calling talent directly, and while Deadline has not been able to confirm any names this time, sources say the auditions are set to take place in August. Amazon MGM Studios, who is distributing and producing the pick, has no comment. As far as how many actors will test in August, one only source says that expect producers to cast a wide net. The exact number of actors is unknown, with some sources saying between 5 and 7, while others say in the teens. And I mean, this is a big role that you have to get right, especially if you're Amazon, because it's their first movie that MGM is basically producing on their own. And so, without the people that were running the Bond series from the beginning around anymore, so they got to get this thing right the first time around. So there was a lot of high expectations on who could be playing this role here, and it's going to be very interesting to see how it plays out in the end here. I mean, there's a good chance that by the time the summer comes to an end, we'll find out who will become the next James Bond, and that is kind of fascinating to see here. I mean, I really don't know for certain who could be the guy that could do it here. They could go with a relative unknown like they've done for the last couple of movies, but they could go for a bigger name like a Pierce Brosnan or a Timothy Dalton. But then again, Timothy Dalton really wasn't a well-known guy when he got cast as Bond. Not that really was Daniel Craig, but at least people knew who Daniel Craig was from stuff like Layer Cake. But it's fascinating stuff overall. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out overall. So that's the whole thing on that one here. So let's go ahead and talk about the next thing we have here, which is Jonah Hill's latest movie and why it's being described as unreleasable, if they will. So Jonah Hill's new movie, Cutoff, which is actually his second directorial debut of the year behind his other movie, which for the life of me, I can't remember the name of it, so that's probably not a good sign. But this time around, because that was released on Apple TV, but this one is supposed to be released by Warner Brothers, and it was actually supposed to come out on July 17th, which was, of course, the same day that the Odyssey will open in theaters. But yeah, they put the film on their shelf for right now, and now there's a whole controversy going around because they say that it is a movie that is unreleasable. So this comes from the Hollywood Reporter, and the story is that Jonah Hill's upcoming comedy Cutoff, co-starring Kristen Wiig, is currently awaiting a new release date. On Friday, Puck News reported the news that the film that was originally slated for July 17th, the same day as Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey, no longer has that date because it was viewed as unreleasable and is now not scheduled. However, a source close to the situation tells the Hollywood Reporter that the film wrapped production in January and that Warner Brothers wants more time in the run-up to its release. The Hollywood Reporter has learned that a new release date is forthcoming. A representative from Hill tells the Hollywood Reporter that the film remains in post-production and that its release date was pushed because it wasn't ready. The film, which Hill described, directed, produced, and co-wrote with Ezra Woods, follows two siblings played by Hill and Wiig, whose wealthy parents stopped financially supporting them. Hill has previously described Cutoff as a classic comedy, comparing it to Step Brothers, Clueless, and Trading Places. I'm about to go on a run of just the dumbest shit you've ever seen in your entire life. I hope you leave your brains at home, Hill said. It's called Cutoff, and Kristen Wiig and I played two dumbass heirs, rich kids in their mid-40s who get cut off by rich parents, played by Bette Midler and Nathan Lane. Additional cast members include Camila Cabello, Adriana Barraza, and Chelsea Peretti. It was first reported in May that Cutoff lost its July release date after it was not included in the studio's 2026 release slate at CinemaCon. Hill's most recently directorial effort, here we go, Outcome for Apple TV, which he also co-wrote, produced, and starred in alongside Keanu Reeves, Cameron Diaz, and Matt Bomer. And that movie I heard was not very good, so maybe that's a reasoning why that film why Warner Brothers might be a little bit hesitant here. But okay, so the movie is a film so they're making it seem like the movie will still get released, but why would you release it? Why would you release a statement that says it's unreleasable? Like, really, what does this movie have that has studio heads going like, I don't know if we can release this movie, guys, just saying. Just like, I mean, is this one of those things like with Coyote vs. Acme, where it's unreleasable because they wanted to put it off as a tax write-off or something like that? Is there something in this movie that will piss off the new heads of Warner Brothers, Trumparamount star David Ellison or David Zaslav, or is the movie just really not that good? Because I really do feel like it could be that in particular overall, and they're just trying to save face here. But I don't know, man. It just seems like it's something that really feels like it's it's really looking like it's all for nothing right now. But then again, you never know. This movie could end up getting released at some point. They're probably waiting for a good release date to release it on instead of putting it out in the middle of the summertime, because, as we just saw with Jackass Best and Last, probably not a good thing to put an R-rated comedy in the middle of a gigantic summer blockbuster slate that includes Toy Story 5, Minions and Monsters, Moana, The Odyssey, Spider-Man, Brand New Day. Yeah, I think I would be smart enough to say, guys, let's go ahead and just push this back and wait for the buzz to die down, and then we can go ahead and release this movie. I think that's what they're doing overall here, but who knows? Maybe there is actually some crazy controversy going on with this film that needs to be getting out there to get the buzz built up on it. But you know that when it does get out, Warner Brothers, the studio, whatever studio puts this out, Jonah Hill will use it as like butt hype to sell the movie to people. There'll be like a thing on the trailers where it's just like the movie that Warner Brothers didn't want you to see, or yeah, they'll try to sell it like that. But it's not like the Coyote vs. Acme thing where they literally tried to hide that movie. Like, this one just feels like it could possibly be a film that was just not good to begin with, and so that's why they're not releasing it. So I don't know. Maybe I'm just overthinking things here, but anyway, let's go ahead now and move on to what you really are here to hear me talk about, and that is, of course, the best and worst movies of 2026 so far. So like I said, it is the halfway point of the year, and that means, of course, it's time to take a look at the best and worst movies of 2026 so far. It's been kind of a mixed bag year, honestly. Not one of the stronger years overall. You do have some good stuff here and there that I'm going to get to eventually, but there's definitely been a lot of stuff that has been more disappointments and more films that are really unusually bad than usual, including some big blockbusters we're going to get to here. So let's go ahead and get right to it. Let's start with my best of the year list. And like I said, this list can honestly change as time goes on, but these are the movies that I think are the best movies of 2026 released so far. I have a couple of honorable mentions here, about 6 of them. The aforementioned Jackass Best and Last, Mortal Kombat 2, which I really thought that was a very good movie, about as good as it fixed a lot of the problems that the last Mortal Kombat movie had. It's the best one I've seen so far, which really isn't saying a whole lot. But Solo Mio, a surprisingly really good film from Angel Studios, of all places, especially after the way they started the summer off here with the worst movie I've seen this year and worst movie of all time. We'll get to that later. Mike and Nick and Alice. This was a really good time travel comedy with Vince Vaughn playing his current self and a future self with James Marsden and Isa Gonzalez. It's a movie I really think they should have released in theaters, because I think that would have done incredibly well. But it's a really funny movie. If you haven't seen it, definitely check it out. It's on Hulu. Masters of the Universe, which I think is a great movie, but then again, it's directed by Travis Knight, and he usually can do no wrong as a director. And then finally, we have Disclosure Day from Steven Spielberg. Again, not as great as I think it could have been, but it still beats the crap out of his last Alien movie, War of the Worlds. So that's that to say. But now moving on to the best movies of the year so far, and like I said, this list can change as the second half of the year begins. Number 10, You, Me, and Tuscany, a movie that this is one of those movies they were hyping up as, you gotta see this movie because the studios won't let us make another one of these if it's not a hit. And it's a shame that nobody really went to go see it, because it was a really fun, lighthearted, romantic comedy where you have Halle Bailey going to Tuscany to be a kind of a housemaid to this place, not knowing that I think it was the brother of the owner of the house, Regine Page, is there, and it shows up and they end up falling in love. It's a really good. It's a very sweet little romantic comedy directed by the person who did a movie I did not like a couple years ago, Marry Me, but this is a really good film. Halle Bailey and Regine Page have a lot of great chemistry together. It's a really good film. Definitely check it out if you haven't seen it. Number 9, we have one of the big bombs of the year, which I really enjoyed, The Bride, directed by Maggie Gyllenhaal, a movie that just goes gonzo nuts. I mean, it's essentially kind of a modernish retelling of The Bride of Frankenstein. It's basically a remake of The Bride, the Jennifer Beals movie from the 80s, but you have who's the Oscar winner from this year? It's got Christian Bale. Jessie Buckley is the bride in this, and Maggie Gyllenhaal puts a lot of effort into the directing of this movie. I mean, you could see that she went gonzo nuts and just went along with it, and it was a fun ride overall. I really enjoyed that one a lot. Number 8, Lee Cronin's The Mummy, a really good I mean, this is what I want to see when Blumhouse does the classic Universal monsters. More stuff like the Invisible Man, where they take a lot of chances with it, and less stuff like the Wolfman, where they don't take a whole lot of chances with it. But the Mummy really worked, man. It was a really fun movie. Lee Cronin, of course, is the man who gave us Evil Dead Rise, with the new Evil Dead movie not too far away. But it's a really good movie, a really good movie, a really grisly film. I like that a lot. Number 7, Toy Story 5. Probably the lesser of the Toy Story movies, but hey, the lesser of the Toy Story movies is still 4.5 out of 5 at least, or at the very least a 4 out of 5. It's still really, really good. Yeah, there's definitely some stuff in it that I didn't like. I didn't like the fact that a lot of the toys were kind of pushed aside for the Jesse, Woody, and Buzz show, but Jesse's storyline does come to an end on a nice note here, and it probably is one of the few movies that has a Taylor Swift song I really do like, so there's that. Number 6, we have Goat. Really fun movie from Sony Pictures Animation, directed by one of the guys who worked on Bob's Burgers, and just has a fun, over-the-top sentimentality to it with the animation and the idea of creating this underdog sports movie. It's a very fun film, a very creative film, a great voice cast all across the board. It's a terrific film. Number 5, we have Sam Raimi's Send Help with Rachel McAdams, once again proving that she's going to rule the world someday because she dominates this movie, beating the shit out of her asshole boss played by Dylan O'Brien. And it's Sam Raimi returning to what we love about Sam Raimi, man. He's really good at doing what he does best here, and it works very well here. Number 4, we've got Hoppers, latest film from Disney Pixar, and definitely a nice return to original form for them. But then again, it helps when you have the creator of We Bare Bears working on it. And it was one of the funniest movies I've ever seen, man. It's a really funny Pixar movie. This might be up there with some of their best stuff overall. It's that good. Number 3, the big breakout hit of the year, Obsession, which is a great movie, a great horror film, but also a tragic romance, man, because you feel bad for this woman who's being possessed by this one wish willow thing, and you feel more bad for her than the guy. The guy you have no sympathy for, and you do wonder how much control is this woman being controlled by this thing. I mean, there's times when you can tell that there's a little bit of some normalcy back with her, but then that's gone almost immediately, and there's some creepy effective scenes. Indy Navarrete is amazing in this movie, and she definitely deserves an Oscar nomination. Hopefully the Academy won't forget her next year, even though it's a horror movie. Number 2, The Sheep Detectives. One of the biggest surprises of the year, man. A fun, lighthearted comedy with a little bit of an edge to it with its murder plot overall, and it was just so well done. It was very funny, very emotional too. Like, it's a movie that you don't see it coming at all. It's a movie where you think it's going to be another one of these cheap little kids films that talks down to the audience. It doesn't do that with this film, and I really love the hell out of it. If you have not seen The Sheep Detectives yet, definitely check that one out. And so far, the number 1 movie of 2026 for me has been Project Hail Mary, and I don't think that's really much of a surprise. Phil Lord and Chris Miller doing a film based off of an Andy Weir novel. The last time an Andy Weir novel made it to the big screen, it was The Martian. It was pretty awesome. And of course, it's Phil Lord and Chris Miller, who haven't directed a big film since, hasn't it actually been since 22 Jump Street? Because they didn't direct Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse or Across the Spider-Verse. No, I think it is. I think it is their first film they've done as directors since the Lego Movie, or 22 Jump Street, which I'd have to double check on that again. I don't have my computer with me to really do the research on that, but it's still a great movie, man. From a visual perspective, from a story perspective, you really feel for Ryan Gosling's character. It's the highlight of the movie of the year this year, and it's going to be really hard to top that film in particular overall. So, Project Hail Mary is the best movie of 2026 so far. Moving on now to the worst movies of 2026 so far, and this one's doesn't have as many. There's no honorable mentions here, but most of the films in this top 10 are films that I've seen that I really do not like, and a lot of them were high-profile releases, but man, they were underwhelming and bad. Like, case in point with number 10, Mercy, with Rebecca Ferguson and Chris Pratt. Chris Pratt is this guy that creates this machine that can, he's a police officer that is the head of this machine that can predict future crimes and all that, and he gets accused of a future crime, and so the judge, Rebecca Ferguson, who's an AI character, and a person made from artificial intelligence, has to decide whether or not he's guilty or not. should be a great premise overall, but man, it's too long, too pretentious, and just not investing overall. You're literally sitting there watching Chris Pratt in a chair for 90 minutes, and you should be compelled by this, and you're just not watching it, man. It's just unbearable to watch, man. It's a terrible film. Number 9, Margot Robbie in one of her first big movies since Barbie, Wuthering Heights, or as I like to call it, A Big, Bold, Beautiful Journey Part 2, because, yeah, the movie may look incredible, but, man, it's a snooze fest to sit through, man. The romance is so bland, and they created all these new elements. They were really pushing this to be a groundbreaking hit film for the studio this year at Warner Brothers, and it just was not that at all. It was a boring period piece movie. And, God bless Margot Robbie. She's trying. And this is directed by Emma Fennell. And, man, talk about a bad year for females at Warner Brothers. You had The Bride, which didn't do well, and Supergirl. I mean, just a really, really bad year for women at Warner Brothers right now. But, number 8, Scream 7. They made another Scream movie, and surprisingly have made the worst of the bunch after all the controversy that went on with Scream 6. This basically completely threw the other story in the trash that we were setting up in Scream 5 and 6, and just started anew again with Sydney once again. This time we're going to put the focus on her daughter, and, it's going to be a big thing where Ghostface comes back, and they add artificial intelligence, and everybody comes back from the other movies. It's just kind of like, oh my god, it's just so annoying and just so not fun. I mean, the fun factor is just gone here, and you could just tell that this was made by people who did not give a shit at all at trying to make a fun Scream movie overall. They saw how successful the last two Scream films were, and said, fuck it, we just want to make our money. Who cares about making a good movie? Because it definitely showed when you watch Scream 7. Speaking of sequels, where nobody really gave a crap, but it made a ton of money anyway, number 7 on my list of the worst movies of 2026, The Devil Wears Prada 2. Yet another comedy sequel that is completely unnecessary, coming way too late, and is nothing more than just, watching a movie where you can go like, oh look, they got Meryl Streep and Anne Hathaway back. Look at all these fancy dresses that they're wearing that are uber expensive that I'll never be able to wear. Okay, where's the story? Where's the reasoning for me to be here? Look at all the $1 million dresses. Isn't that fun? No, it's not fun, because there's no fun to have in this movie. There's not a single element of this movie that warrants them making a sequel at all. The characters are lame. This movie feels like a film that was written by ChatGPT and AI, and it just didn't feel like a movie that really was necessary. Like, it's another one of these lame comedy sequels that are just getting made because of name recognition. It's another Freakier Friday. It's another, what's another one here? Let me check my list here. Maybe it's on here. It's another scary movie. It's a movie where they're only making it because, nostalgia's back this time around, and hey, we can release all these movies that we haven't made films in a long time and sell it as something new when it actually isn't. It's a genius move. It may show it at the box office, but I guarantee you that nobody's going to remember most of these movies by the end of the decade. Number 6. Andrew Stanton has one movie in the best of the year list, but he had a movie in the worst of the year list, In the Blink of an Eye, which is like this sci-fi anthology film that was released on Hulu. And it's one of those pretentious movies in particular. I feel like they were trying to copy the Akira Kurosawa's Dreams aspect of it, but it just wasn't there with this movie, man. And the stuff they put in there, the stories were not that interesting. The visuals look nice, but visuals don't always make a good movie. Case in point with a couple of other movies we'll get to here. But, yeah, it's a very, very disappointing film overall. A really bad film. It's on Hulu if you want to try to watch it, but I say try because I couldn't get through it the first time overall. Moving on to number 5, the Super Mario Galaxy movie. One of the biggest disappointments in a long time. After what they did with the Super Mario Brothers movie, they basically just made what Illumination always does with their sequels. Make it a movie where there's no main story, except let's have little stories going around and try to sell it together as one major plot. And you can't do that with that movie, especially with the way that they just kept cramming all these Nintendo references and nostalgic references in here, like Star Fox is in the movie. Look, we've got Dry Bowser. Look, we've got Birdo. We've got all these characters. It's just like, slow it down, people. I mean, you're going to make your money regardless, so why don't you actually put the money into making a good movie with a good storyline here? No, we're not going to do that. What are you, crazy? Get out of here. And sure enough, it was the biggest success of the year so far, and we've got another one coming in 2029, which tells you one thing. They're just going to do the same thing they did with the last movie, cram in all the references. Who cares about an actual story? Because money is what sells, baby. Moving on to number 4, we have Michael, which is now the highest grossing biopic of all time, surpassing Oppenheimer, which is such a disappointment, man, because, God, I hate that movie so much. Michael, I'm saying, not Oppenheimer. Oppenheimer is awesome, but Michael, the Michael Jackson biopic, I mean, yeah, okay. The guy was great playing, the kid was great playing the grandson of Michael Jackson, Jafar Jackson. He was great as Michael, but at the same time, what else was there with this movie? It was another safe and marketable biopic that's not tackling the stuff we want to see in a good biopic. It doesn't tackle the dark moments. It just shows off all the nostalgic moments. And that's it. That's all this movie really was. But then again, this is written by the same person who made Bohemian Rhapsody. So what do you think was going to happen? When you do a Michael Jackson movie, you have to do it in multiple parts. This is one of those few biopics that needs to be multiple parts. There needs to be a movie. I've always said it. Needs to be a 3-film Michael Jackson trilogy. 1, you focus on the early years. 2, you focus on the years where he became the king of pop. And then 3, you tackle the last years of his life with all the trouble, with all the legal troubles and all that. But you don't do it when you do one movie at first and be like, the people who were in the movie were selling the movie as, well, if you want to see that stuff, you got to come see the movie. No, you can't do that with a movie like this. I mean, it's not good. Yeah, the visuals are great when they recreate the music videos, but that does not make a good movie. Make a good movie. Give us a reason why we should be going to this movie except to just hear Michael Jackson songs. I can go onto my TV or listen to YouTube right now and go to listen to Michael Jackson songs. I don't need a movie like this to try to sell me on something so safe and marketable like this garbage. Moving on to number 3, Psycho Killer, Qu'est-ce que c'est? Run away. It's funny. I was going to go see this movie when it came out in theaters, and it never played around here. That should probably be a good sign. That I should be grateful for that, because when I finally watched this movie, when it came out on digital, it's just kind of like, oh my God, I see what everyone's talking about, because this mystery is not engaging at all. The writing on this is terrible. This is directed by a first-time director, Gavin Polone, who's a producer, written by Andrew Kevin Walker, who wrote 30-plus years ago. And man, it just feels like he was trying to create a new 7 for a new generation, and he failed miserably at it. This is terrible stuff. I mean, there's a reason why this has a 0% rating on Rotten Tomatoes. That's how bad this movie is. Moving on to number 2, the aforementioned Scary Movie, which is nothing more than just the Scary Movies 5 and 6, except this time it's done by the Wayans brothers, because it's not even a Scary Movie film. It's a Freeburg Seltzer late 2000s movie. That's how pathetic the jokes are in this movie. It is not even parody. It's just reference porn. Let's reference all the stuff that we haven't done since the last Scary Movie film. That'll sell everybody. And let's tell people that we're going to bring comedy back, and we're going to use Republican terms and conservative terms to get people hooked in here. It's not going to be woke anymore. Like, it's just, I mean, that's not a reason to see a movie. Make us laugh. You're the Wayans brothers, for God's sakes. But then again, I wouldn't expect anything less from the director of 50 Shades of Black and A Haunted House 1 and 2. When they came on board, it was game over. I mean, when he came on, that was game over at this point. There was no way that movie was going to be good at all. And it would have been the worst movie I saw in 2026 had we not had the number 1 worst movie of 2026 so far, which is, of course, Angel Studios' Animal Farm. A movie that was not made by them. It was made by Andy Serkis' production company, but then was picked up by Angel Studios. And supposedly they had like a completion bond company come in and completely redo the film. But even then, this still would have been one of the worst movies I've ever seen in my life, because of just how they just took everything from the George Orwell book and just basically just took it behind the woodshed and just killed it just like Old Yeller. Because, oh my God, this movie was a horror show. It was terrible, from the terrible animation to the terrible jokes. It's a lame, poorly put together movie. One of the worst things I've ever seen in my entire life. The new worst movie I've ever seen in my life. It took me 12 years after seeing Lucy to find a film that was even worse than that. And lo and behold, Animal Farm was the answer. Animal Farm was not only the worst movie of 2026 so far. In fact, I will not be shocked at all if it's not the worst movie of 2026. I mean, I can't imagine it getting any worse than that, but it's one of the worst movies it's the worst movie I've ever seen in my entire life. It's that bad. So there you go. That's my top 10 best and worst movies of 2026 so far. And I can't wait for it to change by the time we get to the end of the year. So other than that, no real recommendations to talk about this week because the physical media this week has been kind of slow the last couple of weeks, and we probably aren't going to get to see any big new releases coming until the middle of next month when The Mummy comes out on Blu-ray. But there's still some catalog titles out there, some noteworthy stuff here, but nothing that I really think you need to go out there and. I mean, if you go to Barnes & Noble or Walmart or actually Barnes & Noble and Walmart are probably the only places out there you can get physical media like that, but an assortment of it. Or unless you have like a boutique store, like a Vinegar Syndrome, like in downtown we have one. But the Exchange, like if you go to those places, you should be able to find some newer stuff there. And there's some good stuff out there. But with all that said, that's going to wrap up this episode of the Reviewing Network Live. Now, next week is our 13-year anniversary of the creation of this site. So that, of course, means the State of the Reviewing Network for 2026 will be on 4th of July weekend. And to be perfectly honest with you, I really have no idea what I'm going to be announcing. I still have to put that list together because I still have a lot of question marks on some stuff that I could be announcing next week. So, worst comes to worst, it could just simply be a list of things that I'm thinking about doing for next year that may not be officially coming, but hopefully by the time next week's State of the Reviewing Network happens, I'll figure out what kind of show I want to replace Time About the Movies with when we finish that this year. A couple of other new projects I'm thinking about doing. So, again, we'll see what happens. We'll talk about it next week. But until then, thank you so much for watching this and enjoying this. If you did, hit that like button, subscribe button, notification button. Check out our last episode and our playlist as well. And I'll see you guys next week for the State of the Reviewing Network address on the Reviewing Network Live. So, with all that said, thank you so much for watching this, and I'll see you next time. Until then, we are out.